Hi everyone, my name is Courtney Robison, and I'm going to be reviewing the theory application and critique assignment. And for this assignment, I chose the strengths perspective. And the reason that I chose this perspective is because it seems to so perfectly and intrinsically align with what we're doing in the field of social work. And it's, essentially an unspoken rule that you will follow this methodology of thinking within the field of social work as we inherently as professionals are seeking out the client's strengths in order to promote their capabilities and not be looking primarily at the pathology and at the negatives and the problems as other professions often do. I first became introduced to the strengths perspective during my undergraduate in the BSW program, and I remember thinking initially, the strengths perspective, okay, I could see where that could be useful, but I really didn't see how there could be an entire perspective or theory about using a strengths-based approach. And that's something that I discovered within the literature, is that, one may inaccurately assume that the strengths perspective is just a strengths-based way of looking at things. But in reality, it's far more complex and multifaceted than that. While it is true that the strengths perspective does include within it an overwhelming optimistic way of viewing individuals, groups, families, and communities, it provides much more in-depth guidance of the subject matter of strengths-based thinking and practice. So in order to break this down, I'm going to be reviewing and examining the basic assumptions and principles, specific language and concepts, applying the perspective to a scenario in which it is applicable, and then also evaluating some of the strengths and limitations of the perspective. I think it's kind of interesting to start with the point that the strengths perspective technically isn't actually a theory, it's a perspective, which, before this assignment, I didn't really distinguish a difference between a perspective and a theory, but when I was reading through the literature, there is actually a difference. So it's the strengths perspective isn't actually a theory, as theories aim to explain some type of phenomena through analytical description. And it's also not a model, as models are intended to represent some aspect of the world through logic and graphics. So the strengths perspective is just that, a perspective. So perspective, as compared to theory, is a little more difficult to define, but in short, basically, a perspective is a way of viewing concepts and understanding experiences, perceiving and appreciating through a particular lens. Just about everything a social work practitioner does is centered in some way or another in exploring and exploiting individuals, groups, communities, strengths and resources, utilizing those to empower clients to function within the highest of their capacity and to reach their goals, recognize their dreams, and emerge from the limitations of their own inhibitions in order to achieve self-actualization and success. Dominant society often focuses on problems and pathology, what is wrong, and how to fix those issues by resolving them. However, this really seems to only fuel the fascination with problems rather than seeking the good. And focusing on deficits can promote self-fulfilling prophecies, where someone sees themselves as they feel they're perceived by others, and if that is seeing themselves as a failure, then it's likely that they'll follow that path and become such. However, though, the same type of self-fulfilling prophecy can occur through a strengths-based perspective, where someone whose strengths are acknowledged and accentuated are, better able to build self-confidence, which in turn encourages hope. This is really where the strengths perspective differs from the typical model of viewing deficits. It seeks to focus on possibilities as opposed to problems, and promotes a focus on an individual's positive qualities, which can be utilized to assist in problem solving and making positive changes, promoting an individual's resources, capabilities, knowledge, abilities, motivations, experience, and intelligence. It's important to consider that the utilization of the strengths perspective has the capability of building a strong foundation for empowerment. And Although it sounds like it's, a fairly simple thing to do, utilizing strengths-based thinking is not as easy as it may sound, based on, human beings' inherent nature to focus on problems. I'm now going to review the basic principles or assumptions of the theory. So the first of the strengths perspective is that every individual, group, family, and community has strengths. This principle asserts that strengths do exist within the different levels at which a social work professional's efforts are aimed to assist, and within these strengths prevail in the knowledge client systems have about resources at their disposal. And as clients are the experts and not the helping professional of their own situations and lives, they are the ones who are most knowledgeable about the resources that they possess within their social environment. And there's also the assertion that resources do exist within social environments of clients, and the availability to access these resources in and of itself is a strength. It's challenging for helping professionals at times to allow ourselves to be educated by clients and accept that oftentimes they know more than we do. And, despite their, adversities, clients often possess substantial knowledge and resources, and they're usually not ignorant to the facts of what their issues are and how to remedy them. Trauma and abuse, illness and struggle may be injurious, but they may also be sources of challenge and opportunity. This asserts that conquering obstacles in life is a strength, and that while adverse, negative experiences can and do serve as a foundation for growth, learning, and resilience, and that we shouldn't automatically assume that individuals who have experienced adversities such as abuse and trauma will have a life sentence as victims, forever to be seen as vulnerable and weak. This next assumption is actually my favorite assumption of the entire perspective, which is that assume you do not know the upper limits of the capacity to grow and change, and take the individual, group, and community aspirations seriously. This is basically saying that an individual's capabilities shouldn't be limited by what other individuals believe the person is or is not able or willing to achieve, and that we should encourage individuals to pursue their wishes and dreams no matter what they are. And, the strengths perspective seeks to promote one's capabilities with an emphasis on potential and the encouragement of endless possibilities. This involves holding individuals accountable to their aspirations and pushing them to achieve their full potential, rather than giving up on them or with them and disregarding their ability to succeed. We must instill higher expectations and become an advocate of and a partner to clients' hopes, dreams, and aspirations of themselves. Put simply, individuals are more likely to believe in themselves if others believe in them. We best serve clients by collaborating with them. It's critically important that helping professionals and clients work together as a team, and that while clients may need assistance from others to reach their goals, they should be involved in every step along the way in order to instill a genuine sense of fulfillment and accomplishment. The helping professional is not the most significant contributor of knowledge or resources which promote a client's ability to be successful, but rather we are a collaborator working with the client to provide some information or tools to assist the client in success. But the helping professional is not solely responsible for the success of the client. The client is believed to be primarily responsible for their own success, with some guidance, knowledge, and tools provided by others. Every environment is full of resources. This assumption basically asserts that individuals thrive in social environments where opportunities exist for the individual to participate in, which in turn provide access and potential to promotion of one's well-being and social actualization. The knowledge, abilities, and resources of all community members should be valued because within every environment, there are networks of individuals, families, groups, etc., all of which individually have something to share in the form of knowledge or resources of some sort that others may very much so need. The final assumption of strengths perspective is caring, caretaking, and context. This assumption asserts that individuals have the capacity to care for one another, and care is seen as an essential function to the well-being of humans. I'm now going to be reviewing the concepts or language of the theory perspective, rather. And I think it's important to note that when I'm reviewing these concepts and I'm saying the individuals, whatever, that I'm talking about an individual, family, group, or community, but I'm just going to simplify it by saying the individuals. The first concept is plasticity. I think I said that right. This is the concept which references an individual's capacity to continuously grow and learn. It also refers to the amazing ability of individuals to change and restructure their way of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Placebo effect is the next concept, and this references an individual's capacity to maintain a sense of optimism and hope against all odds or under circumstances which may be harsh or unfavorable. Empowerment is the next concept, and it references an individual's willingness and ability to utilize available resources to promote and increase their well-being. It also refers to the helping process of assisting client systems in recognizing and utilizing resources and tools within them for their own prosperity. Individuals possess an awareness of options, power to act upon such, and some resources and capacity to take action when they are empowered. Membership is the next concept, and this references an individual's sense of belonging to something and the associated sense of respect and dignity, which presumably comes with that inclusion and being an agent of something. Those who are devoid of some sort of membership to something often result in a sense of isolation and alienation, which renders devastating effects to the individual, but unfortunately is not an uncommon phenomenon. My favorite concept of the strengths perspective is resilience, and this is the individual's capacity to conquer adverse circumstances and experiences and to utilize such endeavors as opportunities for increased personal knowledge and growth. One should view it as a rule rather than the exception that individuals do bounce back from significant problems and that individuals in the larger society do prevail and defeat grave and concerning hardships. Negative experiences, including those which are chronic, do not unavoidably equate to weakness, failure to adjust, and psychopathology. Healing and wholeness refers to an individual's capacity to formulate a connection with their social environment and utilize that relationship to assist in mending their trauma. Healing asserts the ability of one's body and mind to restore and resist when faced with disorder and accompanying physical and psychological interference. Individuals have the natural ability, each to their own varying degree, to heal. Dialogue and collaboration refers to an individual's capacity to establish and participate in interpersonal relationships and utilize those as resources for which to build growth and knowledge of competencies and to build social skills through interaction between and among one another. Empathy, along with connection and inclusion of other individuals, is required within the action of dialogue. The final concept of strengths perspective is suspension of disbelief, and this references an individual's ability to be willing to disregard or let go of their own preconceived beliefs for something that may seem to them improbable or impractical. It's allowing oneself to believe the possibility of the experiences as described by others to be true and possible as their reality, and not to discount it due to our own preconceived notions of what is and is not reasonable and realistic. I'm now going to apply the strengths perspective to a hypothetical scenario in which I think that it applies. So the example that I'm using is a single mother with a young child living in a public housing community, and this mother having an ongoing cycle of struggling with illicit drug abuse, living in poverty despite working 2 jobs, and having a history of childhood trauma. So notice when I described this scenario, the focus was on the problems or issues. So now I want to describe it again and focus a little bit more on some of the strengths while not ignoring the issues. So the mother is the head of the household, which consists of herself and her young child, within a close-knit public housing community. Mother is actively involved as a member of the recovery community, where she has established informal supports, including a sponsor, in addition to her natural informal support, including a sister with whom she's very close, despite her ongoing cycles of struggling with illicit drug abuse. She works 2 jobs, making minimum wage income to support herself and her child, while also receiving public assistance benefits to supplement the income that she earns. Despite her own childhood where she experienced trauma, Mother is often described by all with whom she interacts as a loving and doting mother of her child. So in my actual paper, I went through each of the individual concepts and assumptions and applied this hypothetical scenario that I came up with. But in this video, I'm just going to try to hit on a few key points so that I don't make this video, which is already longer than it should be, even longer. So I feel like the mother in this scenario experiences plasticity regularly, as she's demonstrated the ability to grow and learn by acknowledging and accepting her addiction and allowing others to help her, whereas previously she was in denial about being labeled an addict due to her own shame and embarrassment for her choice to ever begin using drugs in the first place. The mother in this scenario experiences the concept of empowerment when she utilizes the resources that she has at her disposal, including her recovery community, her sponsor, her sister, her neighbors within her public housing community that she's close with, her daycare provider, and her daughter. She receives support from these resources, which assist her in promoting her own well-being, as she's able to allow others to help her so that she's able to, in turn, better help herself. The mother in this scenario experiences resilience as she has faced challenges such as childhood physical abuse and neglect, drug addiction and poverty, and prevailed as a survivor who is now a mother to her own child, whom she deeply loves and cares for, adores, and takes care of, as a recovering addict who has the support of her recovery community, and her sister to continue fighting the urges to use daily, and who receives unconditional support even when she fails at fighting her urges some days, and as a hard worker who works 2 jobs to support herself and her child, and is described as her supervisors, or by her supervisors, as a very hard worker and an asset to their companies. Mother experiences the assumption in the strengths perspective that trauma and abuse, illness and struggle may be injurious, but may also be sources of challenge and opportunity. When she's finally able to achieve 1 year of sobriety and serve as a sponsor for a newly sober recovering addict, and her experiences of addiction herself arm her with the knowledge and resources to assist her mentee in successfully working her way through the program and eventually obtaining her own sobriety. The strengths perspective has within it both strengths and limitations, as with any model, perspective, or theory. A couple of the strengths perspective include that it's a strengths-based way of thinking, which is the alternative to the fixation with the negative faucets of society. And the strengths-based way of thinking aligns with the social work profession's values, specifically the respect for the worth and dignity of a person. The strengths perspective is also supported by research as being effective, so it is evidence-based. And the utilization of the perspective exploits the best attributes of a client system, promotes collaborating together to overcome trouble and adversity, confronts the misfortune with all available tools and within and around one's social environment, and fights against cynicism, promotes collaboration and the forward movement of achieving positive outcomes together. In addition to the strengths of the strengths perspective, there's also some limitations to consider. Some of the limitations or criticisms of the strengths perspective that I found in the literature included that some may see the strengths perspective as an intentional and persistent focus on strengths, which can equate to the disregard of the struggles and pain of individuals, or to avert the attention away from the realities of those who've experienced trauma, neglect, and abuse. The perspective is also viewed by some as a false representation of what really is, or a glorified version of optimistic thinking, and even denial of the issues altogether. It's been criticized as positive thinking in disguise, that it's a means of reframing misery, ignoring reality, and is a representation of Pollyannaism or an exaggeration of optimism, basically. I just want to thank you for watching this video and really commend you if you made it all the way through to the end, given that it has gone on probably longer than you wished that it would. But I hope that you feel like you've been able to learn a little bit about the strengths perspective, the assumptions, the concepts associated with it, how it can apply to real life situations, and some of the strengths and limitations as you implement it in practice when working with clients of social work. Thank you.